Hey, well, thank you so much for clicking on my new video with YouTube. I'm doing something a little different today, and I haven't ever done something like this before, but starting in 2026, God really put it on my heart that there's a lot of people who have always wanted to flow in the prophetic with worship, and they just never knew how. So he told me to just share a bit of my journey with you guys on how I learned how to do worship in the prophetic, starting with kind of first learning how to connect with the piano and then touching in on like my journey with God. But today, what I want to talk to you about is learning how to listen to the instrument that God has given to you. When I was a teenager, the Lord really spoke to me clearly, and He told me, that I had played the parts right on piano. I had played the music and the songs from my books for, at that point, a decade or so. And He said, you've been playing the parts, but have you ever just sat and listened to the piano? And I remember that really struck me, that I could just sit and that there would be something that would speak to me from the instrument. And so I did. I sat down at the piano and I began to just listen. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. When you sit at an instrument, like the instrument has a song within it. And it's not about playing the most advanced parts or the most complicated pieces. It's really just about tapping into the instrument and connecting with it. Like in music, it's not just about hitting the notes. It's not about the most advanced scales and the busiest pieces that you can play. You could play two notes in one instrument and they would just open up worship for people because of the connection that you and the instrument have together. It opens the door for worship. So when I realized it wasn't about how busy I made it on the piano, but it was about the connection with it, that was when music really changed for me. And I began to start creating my own pieces. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was tapping into the Spirit in worship. So what I mean by simplicity is, let's just take the key of C. So this is a C chord, right? There's a lot of different ways that you could play a chord. And like I said, it's not about how busy, right? I could do as many arpeggios or scales as I wanted. But what difference does it make if we're not connecting with the instrument and letting the musicality that God has given us come and express? So a lot of worship is just based on simple chords. So right then I just played a C chord, an A minor chord, and an F chord. That's all it took. And the flow for worship just started coming in. So now what I'm going to show you is how to just listen to an instrument and let the melodies of the prophetic just flow out of you. So I'm going to start on the C chord. And I'm just going to pray in the Spirit while I play. So, a lot of times when I play melodies on the piano, I also hear lyrics, and that's how the song comes forth into the realm with what I sing. So, with this one, the words I heard were, I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Ooh. So at first, everything that I learned with music came from a lot of practice. So I started in a classical background and I just learned how to really be proficient in the instrument and understanding music theory. And so that was my foundation. Like I said, the Lord came to me and He said, you know how to play the parts right on the piano. You know how to play the sheet music, but do you know how to listen to the instrument? So maybe you're on the other side where you know how to just sit and just worship and all you know are those 3 or 4 chords. Well, then the time I believe the Lord is speaking for you to dive into the instrument. What is holding you back? Everything you can take next steps in learning. And learning is like it's like keys given to your life. It just unlocks more and more doors. So if there's anything that you want to learn about an instrument, don't let anything hold you back, because I can tell you, if you just stay consistent, get help, get a good teacher, stay consistent and continue to learn about that, you're going to just see all these doors of learning open up in your life. And then you're going to all that's going to just pour into what you do on the instrument. So when I started listening to the piano, every song that I had mastered and I had learned, all of those techniques and skills and musical ideas, they were like coming in touch with the prophetic and creating new ideas from what his spirit was singing out to me, and then coming onto the piano. But I was able to access those ideas because of all the things that I learned. So if you're coming from the classical side where you know how to play an instrument, you know how to hit all the notes right, just sit at the piano and just start letting God speak to you and help you come in tune with the prophetic that he's giving to you in the instrument. If you're on the other side where you only know 3 or 4 chords, don't be discouraged, because God has gifted you with the desire to be a worshiper and to play an instrument. I believe everyone should play an instrument. I believe that if there's an instrument that you've always wanted to learn, it's because you are supposed to learn. So don't be intimidated if there's anything that you feel like you can't get it, or you feel just intimidated about even taking the steps to learn. I can tell you from someone who has overcome obstacles in music, in instruments, that if you set your mind to it and you stay in there, stay consistent with the Lord and what he's wanting you to learn, you're going to do it, and you're going to overcome, and you will learn those new things, and nothing will be held back from you. The limits are taken off of you, and it's time to move forward. It's time to do what God has put on your heart. So I hope this really helped you, and I'm just going to flow a little bit more just to, continue to help you see how that process works with just listening to the instrument and letting God give you that prophetic flow. All right, here we go.